So it's good to have you down here in South Florida.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's been too long.
It really has. It's just nice to be here, and it's so sunny and great weather.
No UK lockdown.
No UK lockdown. It's freedom.
So tell me, bring me up to speed. Where are we right now with everything going on with Proximie? I know we just sat outside and you were wrapping up a call with a big strategic.
I mean, it's just been the most fast-paced 6 months we've had in, since we started. It's, we moved from about 50 hospitals to close over 200 hospitals in a period of 6 months. Our team doubled. Now we're hiring people virtually, which is an interesting model to take.
Well, it's a virtual company, so you have to take your own medicine.
It is. And it's been really interesting seeing, not that the need wasn't there before. I think there's a misconception often that COVID has created the need. I think the need was there. When we looked at 2019, we were doubling quarter on quarter in terms of engagement, usage, footprint, and we were seeing a really nice kind of trajectory of where we were going. But definitely it hit a massive inflection point in that kind of April, May time, where people that were already realizing that there was a need and a good product market fit were suddenly capitalizing and moving quickly. They were making decisions faster, moving quickly, and we suddenly found ourselves almost implementing in close to 30, 40 hospitals a month. And when we looked at our caseload, we jumped from probably about 100 cases a month to 800 cases a month that are Proximie-aided cases. So it was really incredible to see, whilst we in our mind always wanted to build a global company with a global deployment mechanism, we really proved it. So really a kind of a global company with a global footprint. And this year we've done close to 6,000 procedures already on the platform. So it's been a real growth when we look at this year compared to last year.
6,000. And so those are all documented. Do we capture all those?
That's the Proximie library, and that's the great thing of understanding the user journey. So surgery is not a moment in time. It's very easy to say, I'm going to dial into a case, be there for a bit, and then leave. It's kind of what surgery has always been, right? You walk up, you come into an operation, you spend the day, and then you leave. But we don't understand that kind of game tape mentality, that debrief. How do I take that moment in time, record it, capture a digital footprint of it so I can go back and look at it again? And so that was really in the model of Proximie, of that kind of prepare, perform, and perfect. And so every single case in a fully compliant way is tagged and stored in our library. We have the optionality where customers may not want to record it, and so it's great that you give customers that option because you have to buy trust with them. But where they do want to use it, they do, and it's been so useful for them across kind of clinical use cases and kind of medtech use cases as well.
So knowing the medtech and the health tech industry, because I've broadened it now, it's no longer medtech, it's health tech. There are organizations that are on the periphery of health tech right now, Google, Amazon, Samsung, IBM, who would love to have that data, the video data, because it's all about the video, it's all about the data. That's an entirely new market as well, right? So we've got obviously the scrub in, the dial in, the game tape, but the amount of information that comes off of each of those interactions. Are you seeing lean in from those organizations? You don't have to tell me who they are, but are you seeing lean in from those organizations? I love the platform, but can we get the data?
It's a great question, and it's something we've been coining like the health intelligence economy, because when you look at, the different wedges or systems that can benefit from such an open platform, you've got obviously medtech, which is your first step in. It's beneficial for them, it's helping them scale their business, it's delivering quality training. It's health systems and how health systems can benefit in improving quality, improving efficiency and effectiveness. It's health services. When you look at third parties, whether it's peripheral health tech, kind of like insurers and other systems. And then ultimately it's a health intelligence economy where you get to that penultimate condition where suddenly every operating room is data driven, every bit of data is providing value back into the system. And undoubtedly many partners are going to be interested in that, because whether they're a telco player, because it's piping and connectivity, whether it's a data tech company that understands the benefits and the value of data, there's going to be a lot of interest around there. And it's trying to build out the value proposition that's going to be cohesive across the multiple stakeholders that we've been working very hard on.
I'm wondering if, ooh, look at the food that came. I'm wondering if, is this platform, we got a couple out there, right? So we have Teledoc, we've got Avail, we've got Proximie, of course, but I'm wondering if this is the very first category that gets picked up by a non-medtech player. So it's not J&J, it's not Medtronic, it's not Boston Sci, it's not Edwards. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on that? Because sure, you're an entrepreneur, you're a surgeon, you're a CEO, and you have investors, right? The whole idea is to change the world and maybe make some people some money. Horns of the dilemma. Somebody comes with a big enough check for you, and it's one of the strategics, and you know they're going to potentially block you out. What do you do? Because you can't change the world with one medtech company, Nadine. You know that.
It's always, it's something I always think about as well. And I think, we're, as a team and as a company, we're very mission driven. I mean, ultimately, when we look back at the story of Proximie, I wasn't looking to set up a company. I was looking to make impact. That's what we were trying to do. We were trying to improve quality, democratize access, build a much better model for surgical care delivery. And from where we sit today, and these discussions happen internally quite regularly, we will not get stopped in our tracks in terms of what we want to do. We want to be the system in every operating room around the world. And so the players or the partners that may come in with whatever check that may be, have to make sure that they don't inhibit that for us. Which is why when you think about, do you want to silo the solution under one group or one specialty or one focus? Probably not, because you want to make this that open platform for everything. Undoubtedly, we see partnerships as very important, and we've got partnerships with pretty much every blue chip device company to some extent, in one geography or another. So we see that we're working with over 35, 36 device companies to date. So we recognize that they're all getting value, and ultimately patients are getting value. And I hope we can continue that trajectory and look at partners that are going to help us continue that non-exclusive approach to that data platform, that Switzerland where everyone can benefit. It drives quality, it drives connectivity, and it drives data.
And I see that as, I have no idea what this is, but I'm going to dig in. I certainly see this being the first generation of, let's call it, health tech companies that, I'm doing this so elegantly, by the way.
That's right.
The first generation of health tech companies that may very well fall into the target zone of the non-medtech players. So why not a Verizon? Why not a Teledoc? Why not a Vodafone? Why not a AT&T? Because we're now painting this network of information, connectivity, multimedia, whether it's audio, video, a blend of the two. And medtech companies are not good at any of those. They are not, you know that. And so why would we put it in their hands for them to have it, if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And that's what my fear is in medtech companies is, now if you're a communications multimedia company, everything looks like an opportunity to connect and gather information, gather data, monetize that, and have an open architecture. So you are on the horns of a dilemma.
What I love is that we have stayed on the outside, connecting to all of them. And I think that works quite well. I think if you end up being under one group and eliminating all the other groups that are trying to benefit, then you're eliminating all these potential operations that could benefit from a system like that. I mean, if we look globally, I think I mentioned to you earlier, there's 330 million operations. So I think we've worked really hard to be that middle engine that connects and allows everyone to benefit across the different stakeholders, whether it's a medtech company, a hospital, a telco player, a digital data player, whatever it is. We are that good, compliant engine with a good brand equity. We've worked hard on thought leadership, worked hard on kind of the mission of what we're doing to allow that. And I think having that means that not only can we deliver great stuff for the medtech space, but more broadly health tech, delivering in low-income countries, delivering care in all kinds of geography. I mean, we've worked in over 36 countries so far. Having that ability to in an agile way deploy needs you to be outside the big corporate kind of shackles that sometimes you find.
Yeah, because they just slow everything down. While they make the world go round, they still slow everything down. And this is interesting as you share that with me, is so you've got partners, like you said, most of the big blue chip companies. Let's make sure that Nadine knows what she's eating here, because she doesn't eat fish.
I'm good. No, they've got me that. Thank you.
The tail salad is
I'm good, thank you.
The
We're good.
cath is actually vegan, so it's dairy free. Then the caprese is also no fish, it's just a vegetarian. So it's burrata on the bottom, amazu ponzu, that's a kombu ponzu broth. We make a vinaigrette out of this, and then local Florida tomatoes, and top of it with micro shiso. Right in front of you is the lobster carpaccio. So it's a sous vide clear water lobster tail, a sherry ponzu, brown butter aioli.
And it's ridiculously good.
Thank you.
Everything, even this avocados.
And
good.
then the mini main lobster rolls. It's one of our top sellers.
Great.
Just main lobster, warm butter, brioche bun.
Awesome. And this is a...
This is a tuna pizza. That's one of our signature dishes.
Wow.
So
Okay.
crispy flour tortilla, shaved red onions, truffle aioli, yellowfin tuna, and micro shiso.
Wow. That's going to be a problem.
That's really good, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, you know, as we chat through this is what I love about these conversations I have with executives in this space. You are actually setting yourself up with all of these blue chippers and then the 36 additional medtech companies. What a beautiful entry point for a large tech company to get immediately insinuated into medtech. I mean, I can't think of another category that would allow that to happen. Like, here I stepped in the hub and here's all the spokes, whether it's interventional cardiology, ortho, peripheral, general surgery, aesthetics, and then all of the players in that, all the payers in that. Just think about that. So this sets you up. The longer you hold out and the more aggregate you get of the players, your value goes up to a non-medtech player.
Absolutely, and you know, where you think about it, it's not even, you know, I would almost say that the technology stack is one piece of it, but actually inherently understanding complex health systems, obviously being a clinician myself, I've experienced it firsthand, but the team that we've built around us really understand that deployment mechanism. And so the fact that we can get into hospitals in a few weeks anywhere in the world means the scale and the pace can be critical. And so when you look at these tech companies and others who want a piece of the action, want to get in and see how they can continue to provide value, the conversation is always more like, we can move quickly, so move us, allow us or work with us to move faster, because we're going to be the best people to deploy quickly and get into as many hospitals as possible. So it's a really interesting dynamic where you give them and enable them access to something that would have been very hard for them to build on their own.
So there's some other players in here. We've got Avail. I almost forgot them, sorry. Right? And we've got Teledoc, which picked up In Touch, right? So what's the difference, for the people watching this, what's the difference between the systems?
I think what's really interesting about what Teledoc and In Touch, I guess by extension, they laid the software and hardware infrastructure for connectivity and communication. It's almost the first layer of what you need for what we're trying to build, right? It's communication, immersiveness, data. So if you're able to build out a great architecture around communication, there's so much value that you can have from that. And then they become not siloed to a medtech or any other player. They become the engine that enables all health systems or hospitals or clinicians and patients to benefit from that. And so I think what Teledoc did with the partnership is very interesting. And that, for me is probably one of the strongest plays, I think, in terms of connectivity across health systems. When you look at Avail, I think what's interesting is the robust kind of hardware software approach they've taken. I mean, interesting company, great people, great board members. But they're quite focused on the medtech rep play, and that's an exciting business in and of itself, and credit to them for moving that forward. Our approach has been a bit different because we believe you don't have to bring hardware and software together that are interdependent. You can take a software approach and be hardware agnostic so that you can integrate into an architecture that may already exist, into a hardware business that may already exist, and therefore be much more scalable globally in that approach. They're obviously moving forward with the work that they've done, and we wish them the best of luck. But I see those as two very different approaches where you're building a business that's solely focused on the medtech companies, not necessarily the system play, and you see the connectivity, which is let's lay the pipes because we're going to be the first player who's going to be the biggest in the region, and then think about how others can layer on top of that or benefit from that in the future. So I see that more of a health tech play and that more of a med tech play.
Did you purposefully design Proximie so it was not dependent on hardware?
Yes, because at the time that augmented reality had just come out, everyone was really obsessing about headsets. And you know, there's definitely value in the wearables, and I can see that maybe in 5 years or 10 years, we'll use that more. I think at the time, I just thought as a surgeon, I'm not sure I'm going to be wearing one of those every single day. I can see a lot of value educationally, and you know, the use cases are becoming more coherent now. But at the time, I just thought, why do we have to be cost prohibitive? Why is it that you can only access this by this headset? What if I could build a software that you could access with a headset, you could access with your phone, computer, tablet, robot, laparoscopic sac? Why just not make it more accessible? Because there's often a misconception that you only operate with one tool, and surgeons aren't robotic surgeons. They're gynecologists, urologists, general surgeons, colorectal. They're not a robotic surgeon from that point of view. So the robot is just a tool that they use to enable it. So we wanted to make sure that we could seed into everything that was in operating rooms around the world.
So what would you do different now with what you know, if there'd be anything? Or what, maybe another question first. What concerns you about the industry with where we sit right now in regards to this virtual engagement?
I think the opportunities are growing very quickly. So just if I look at the day-to-day concerns, you know, how can we keep up with the demand? Because there's just so much need and so many geographies to do this. You know, we're a company of 55 people, and we're being asked to go to some of the biggest markets around the world. So it's always about managing that. But I think if I look more globally, you know, in my mind, I can see so many more use cases of this platform, and the ambition is very big. It's almost like, how do we make sure that we can try and connect all the dots really quickly because of the pace that I guess I want to drive things. What I recognized early on is that you have to build a lot of good thought leadership around what you're doing, the good benefits, why we're doing this, and educate the public, because it's a completely new way of doing things. You know, surgeons have been doing the same thing for hundreds of years. You know, walking in and telling them, oh, we're going to go digital, we're going to go data-driven, we're going to go virtual. It's a big mind shift. So I think it's, you know, making sure that I continue to not be impatient and move through what we want to do as a team.
There's that many opportunities right now?
I think there really is. And, you know, when we think about just the inbound commercial, it's definitely, you know, coming at us, which is always very exciting. And it's just making sure, you know, we can continue to keep and scale our teams. And that's why we've doubled in size so far. Yeah. We definitely see the regional aspect being beyond, you know, 2 or 3 markets. You know, when we started, we said we're going to focus on Europe, we'll do a bit in the Middle East, and we'll focus on the States. We launched in the US in April of this year, and it's already more than 50% of our business. And now we're being asked to cover more global regions that are in and of themselves massive markets, you know, 3rd or 4th biggest healthcare markets in the world. So it's trying to make sure that as a company and team, we want to continue to give every customer the most beautiful experience. And to do that, you need to be able to scale your teams.
So you mentioned we're up to 50-something people now. And you've got resumes of people who have just joined the team or have been on the team from some of the well-known med tech companies and then really well-known tech companies. So background of some of these people on the team who see this vision very clearly, companies they're out of on your team.
I mean, we've seen, if we look across the repertoire of companies, pretty much every, you know, of the top 5 medtech companies, we've got someone from each one of those. The top tech companies, you know, you can talk about, you know, J&J, Medtronic, Olympus, Boston Scientific, Google. You know, we've got that kind of caliber across the team, including things like data security from the fintech industry or the finance industry. And that ability to bring people from so many different groups together under one hood that's very mission driven, saying, it doesn't matter if you didn't do this in health tech before, but you understand inherently some of the technological needs that we need. Or the fact that you've all worked in these big corporates, come look at how we can do this in an agile way and scale faster, has been very much an appeal. And I think as a culture in the company, very much that we're going to do this at scale, we're going to change the world, we're going to change surgery. This is the company that's going to deliver it. And I can say, you know, hand on heart, the feedback we often get from people is, I want to come work with you because of all the things we've seen out there and of all the companies out there, you guys seem to have cracked how to do it at scale, how to build an exciting commercial business for sustainability as a business, but how to do something that is really so focused on the human story and the human impact. And trying to find a way to balance and dovetail those two together can be difficult.
So you're no fish or pork, huh?
I'm tending to be more vegetarian lately. I don't know why.
It's a pretty healthy move.
Yeah.
Do you do cheese?
I love cheese.
Ah, okay, there we go. One of the things that your organization's done extraordinarily well, and part of medtech is starting to get it, part of healthtech is starting to get it, is sharing your story outside this classic sort of distribution channels in medtech. You know, I've seen you, I think, in Forbes. I've seen you on TED Talks. Certainly featured in the non-conventional health tech rags magazines. Is that the world just finding you, or is it part of your compulsion to share the story?
I think it's a combination. I think so far, you know, we've been very fortunate that a lot of what you see out there, I think most of it is actually inbound. You know, we don't go out and do sort of pay-to-play type marketing. You know, I just believe that if I want to put something out there, I want it to be truly because someone's interested in what we're doing and they want to share our story. So today, and we've been going for several years now, we've never really paid for a piece to be out in any press.
Yep.
What's really important for me has always been showing vulnerability, showing the human story, sharing my personal experiences, why I did this. You know, I'm not your typical serial CEO, entrepreneur, you know, that's, you know, I'm a surgeon. That's what I'm, yeah, I'm a surgeon. But what I do have is the desire to make a difference, and that kind of grit and perseverance, say, you know, whatever the battles, how difficult it's going to be, whatever learning curve I have, I'm going to move quickly and bring people around me that really understand it. So we've been very focused on storytelling. And I think storytelling is something that you do very well as well. It takes it beyond just what's the features of the application, what's the technology stack, you know, what are the 5 features I'm going to get for X, to how am I going to change someone's life? How is this going to change surgery? How are we going to transform this industry? And that becomes bigger than one person or one thing. It becomes a global ambition that, you know, even beyond me, as this kind of grows and scales, becomes something that we can look back and feel that we've kept a legacy, or, you know, made a legacy that's long lasting. So I'm very driven by legacy building and change, and that's perhaps reflective in what we do and what we put out there.
You had mentioned in one of our previous conversations that you had made a decision, I think in your early teens, to become a surgeon, and in particular on the aesthetic side, or reconstructive side,
on the reconstructive side, yeah.
Now, there's not many 13-year-olds who think about that, right?
No. Yeah, probably a bit geeky for the age, but you know, I don't think people always get the pleasure of that. But when you find something that your heart just tells you that's what, you know, that's it. That's what I want to do. It was, you know, I still remember that day. I still remember coming home, sitting on the couch with my mom saying, this is it. I found what I want to do.
Well, how'd you get there? Not many kids are doing reconstructive surgery.
So I was raised in San Diego, California, and in my teens, my parents moved us back to Beirut, Lebanon. It's where my family's originally from. To spend a time there, getting to meet the wider family and kind of back to our roots. So during those years, we obviously saw a lot of things, and it was in the 90s. It was post-war Lebanon, but there were still a few battles and things that were happening during the 90s. So we saw firsthand some of those difficulties, and you see firsthand the consequences of war. Not just war itself, but the long-term consequences, which can be really debilitating. You know, patient morbidity, not being able, you know, limbs, you know,
and
all
it's
those
usually
other
not the warriors, it's usually the civilians.
It's victims, civilians that just were caught in the crossfire. So, you know, I started to see that around me as we were going, you know, around the city, and you just see it around you all the time. And we had a relative, a friend of ours, who was a plastic surgeon in New York. He worked at NYU, and he used to fly into Beirut every year in summer and spend a few weeks going to camp hospitals and doing reconstructive surgery pro bono. And I heard him speaking about it when he was visiting my parents, and I just said, oh, can I come with you? And back then, you take a 13-year-old to see. So I just said, can I come with you? And he said, are you serious? I said, absolutely. Like, I want to go and see what you do. And I remember that day he picked me up at like 6 a.m. We drove to the hospital, did the cases, and I was just on an adrenaline rush the whole day. Came home, said, this is exactly what I want to do, and haven't looked back ever since. It's what I've done. So.
For a 13-year-old, right? Surgeon, and in particular, very specific.
Very specific.
Yeah. And so you practice now in the UK still?
I practice in the UK. I'm a reconstructive plastic surgeon, largely in the areas of breast and pelvic cancer. I don't do it full time, so I do it part time, but it's enough to make sure that I still have that time that's very special with patients, and getting that one-on-one time with them really means a lot to me.
So when you got thrust into being this CEO of a super progressive company that's introducing something the industry has not quite seen before, how do you think people think about you? Are you like the new kid on the block, or how are you going to go up against some of these juggernauts? How has that been orchestrated? I'm sure everybody's lovely to you as they meet you. It's hard not to be. But you're also a clear and present threat to a lot of people. You're a clear and present threat to sales organizations who don't have Proximie. You're a clear and present threat to companies like InTouch and Avail. And you and I have seen emails from some of those companies about, look at our company, look at our experienced CEO. So here you are, this hyper intelligent, stunning surgeon who's a CEO, who's a huge threat. Do you get a sniff of that ever?
I think, sometimes it's the unknown, right? So I am not your typical, not been a CEO before, but that's okay too, because I think I bring a different lens to it. And I think I find that sometimes people struggle because they can't figure you out, because they don't actually understand how it all fits together. You don't fit a stereotype.
A box that they like to have.
I don't fit in any of those boxes. Female surgeon, first-time CEO, building an exciting business, very mission-driven, very commercially savvy from that point of view. They just don't know how to place you, and I think that uncertainty often throws people off and makes them unsure. But I think when they get to know me, what I've always tried to demonstrate is that, we're all together stronger, and we're going to move this industry, we're going to move things forward together, always open to collaborate. But I do think that it's okay to have the left field. It doesn't always have to be the serial CEO type that's going to solve this problem. If anything, talk to the person who's been feeling that pain every day. The people, like myself, the surgeons on the front line who have experienced those challenges. Meet them, understand what their challenges are, and that's what I stand for. I represent the consumer and the user as much as I represent the business behind it.
I also think you bring in a much needed shield to a bias that's occurred in medtech for the last 30, 40 years. So, you could have too much experience in medtech, because then you're locked into a bias prison. That this is the way it's done, this is the way it has to be done, here's who our customer is. And I think you might have a chance of being one of those in a category as, I don't have a customer right now, everybody's my customer. Where maybe some of your competition have locked and loaded, and they will say you have to focus on something. And it's a fair argument, in a classic B school move. You have to focus on something. But I think you scare them by having a wide open sort of mindscape right now.
Yeah, because you don't have any, I don't have any preconceived conditions around, how this should work, or, I've not done it in many other companies, and I like the ability to be different and agile. When we think about even how we run the day-to-day stuff, we try to take it outside of that standard corporate. I don't think this space needs that kind of structured corporate approach. There's an element of it as you scale, but I think that early bit when you're really trying to transform hearts and minds and show and demonstrate the value, you have to take an approach that's that's just different. It's human. It's about listening. It's about speaking to them and understanding what drives them, as opposed to, this is my balance sheet, this is how I want to run things, this is my go-to-market strategy, this is my pricing model, which is very, very traditional, I guess, from that point of view. So everything that we do, I guess, is atypical, including myself. But I love that. I love that, we can be an example, or I can be an example for future individuals that might be interested in the space and have been turned off because they're concerned that they don't fit that box or that stereotype. So let's see.
And the investors, are they able to cozy up to you, even though you're not a 3-time exit CEO, as some of the people you're going up against right now?
My feeling, at least from the investors that we've spoken to, is that we do a very good job at building the compelling story, as well as the exciting business. And I think, they're quite enamored by this. She's really she's got commercial savviness that we wouldn't expect from a surgeon. So she actually understands how you need to drive this business forward. But at the same time, she really understands healthcare and complexities and how to navigate that. And it's very hard to find the mix of both. And so oftentimes when you're sitting and pitching and then they start to talk about, financials or what's the business, I'm like, yeah, I can talk you through a P&L, I can talk you through the financials as well. And they're like, okay, so she can actually do all those little bits, so that works, But we've had some really great investors. We've got some, your typical institutional ones, but we've also got some really great, high net worth individuals that have come in as well. And, one of our investors was one of the CTOs of Uber. So really kind of getting his lens on operational scale and how do you have to do it in a very quick way, very agile way as you're trying to keep up with the demand. We hear great stories of how they tried to work through that, and we learn a lot from them too.
So Uber.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got the right bench behind you.
Yeah.